Good evening and welcome to the Sunday edition of Poland Daily. I'm Conrad Gorlinski. Let's take a look at this evening's headlines. Well, Putin's tactics look to be quite simple. Deprive the Ukrainians of electricity, water, and heating just in time for winter. Ukraine is preparing to experience the toughest winter in its history. As the New York Times found, Kiev is planning to evacuate up to 3 million people. The Washington Post, on the other hand, revealed that the White House is privately encouraging President Zelensky to open up to negotiations with Russia. Reportedly, Kiev is now trying to secure as many military gains as possible before winter arrives. And when it does, there will be a window for diplomacy.
Yesterday, Tehran confirmed for the first time that it had supplied combat drones to Russia. According to the Iranian Foreign Ministry, a small number of drones were delivered months before Moscow forces invaded Ukraine. Tehran stresses that drone deliveries to Moscow were halted before the invasion. These slanders by the West about the supply of combat drones from Iran to Russia during the armed conflict in Ukraine are irrational. We have indeed delivered drones, but months before the war. We have asked Ukraine's foreign ministry to provide us with evidence supporting Kiev's position. Kiev does not believe Tehran remains aloof when Russian warehouses shine empty. Ukrainian forces report a sharp increase in attacks with these weapons over the past weeks. Every day, at least 10 Iranian drones fall into our hands. Iran claims to have delivered a few drones even before launching a full-scale invasion. This does not compute. Iranian instructors conducted drone handling training in Russia. If Iran continues to lie about this, our partners will thoroughly investigate the cooperation between Russia and Iran. Then we will know the details of what Russia is really paying Iran for. Meanwhile, the area around Bakhmut has seen the fiercest fighting of all the clashes across the front line this week. Bakhmut is being shelled from several directions, but more than 12,000 civilians remain in the city. Local authorities are steadily providing food to residents, despite the hindered supply. Here, mourning for more casualties is an unpleasant daily occurrence. 7 people were wounded yesterday alone. Since fighting began in the area, 120 civilians have been killed. Take the correction that these figures are difficult to determine. Fighting is still going on in some neighborhoods or is prevented by the occupation authorities. Russia launched 2 more S-300 system missiles towards Zaporizhia last night. The missiles fell on a shopping center. 1 person was killed in the attack. Unfortunately, I have become accustomed to explosions. Yesterday was ordinary but terrifying. I was lying in bed looking through my phone. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, an explosion, and then that silence again. Last month, the bodies of 436 people killed by Russian terror were exhumed in Izium. Most of them died as a result of torture. Izium residents decided to collect DNA material to identify loved ones. We were not allowed to approach the grave. The military guarded the burial site. I only know the grave number. We thought that when everything calmed down, we would approach to honor the fallen. This mass grave is the most numerous grave in Izium. Findings on the number of people buried are unfortunately inaccurate. There are times when detailed identification shows that there are 3 bodies in the grave instead of 1. Russia's Wagner Group is a private military company whose military operations are characterized by particular brutality. On Friday in St. Petersburg, the company opened a Wagner Center to publicize its military credentials and welcome more volunteers. According to experts, the lack of opposition from Russians to the operation of such organizations indicates the poor moral condition of Russian society. We are in the 9th month of the war. We have seen protests in Russia for perhaps the first 2 or 3 weeks, beginning with the Russian invasion on February 24th. One should not hold out any hope that the Russian public at this particular moment, or at least in the near time, will somehow begin to protest or oppose the Russian government. The U.S. government says U.S. support for Ukraine will remain unwavering, even in the face of upcoming congressional elections. The Pentagon has announced another $400 million in military aid to Kiev. With Western support, a Ukrainian victory remains a matter of time.
Well, since the Second World War, there had been a total of 6 presidents of the Second Polish Republic living in exile in the United Kingdom. Today, the remains of 3 of them were ceremoniously bid farewell on British soil. And now the ashes of Władysław Raczkiewicz, August Zaleski, and Stanisław Ostrowski will be brought back to Warsaw. A ceremonial burial of the first 3 Polish presidents in exile will take place in the mausoleum of the Temple of Divine Providence on November 12th, with the participation of representatives of the highest state authorities. Today's ceremony began at the Cemetery for Polish Airmen in Newark-on-Trent. It's one of the largest Polish necropolises in the United Kingdom. Just a couple of days ago, the bodies of the first 3 Polish presidents in exile lay here. Władysław Raczkiewicz, August Zaleski, and Stanisław Ostrowski's remains have now been exhumed. And after the ceremonies were completed in Newark today, the remains were transported back to their homeland.
Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you all very, very warmly gathered here in Newark, most warmly and cordially to this special event, the repatriation of the remains of the Polish presidents in exile to Poland. This is, ladies and gentlemen, the farewell ceremony for the 3 presidents of the Republic of Poland in exile. 3 outstanding politicians who are today returning to their native land. Bringing Polish presidents in exile from England to Poland marks the culmination of 4-year celebration commemorating the 100th anniversary of Poland's independence. This undertaking symbolically closes a chapter of historical turmoil that our country experienced during the Second World War and later under communism.
Today's ceremonies were not just an expression of gratitude for the hardships these men endured all those years in exile, but also gratitude for ensuring the continuity of the Polish state following Germany's invasion of Poland in 1939. Well, today, Minister Anna Moskva announced that there may be some good news on the nuclear front for Poland. In terms of the payments due from the European Reconstruction Fund, however, there are only crickets. In a recent interview, President Duda said that perhaps Poland had shown too much goodwill to the EU. He said Poland had fulfilled all the necessary conditions to receive its funds and that he will not even respond to any additional comments from the EU side. Yesterday, President Kaczynski said outright that the reason Poland is not being paid the money it's owed is because politicians from the opposition are voting against their own country at the European Parliament.
President Andrzej Duda, in an interview with the weekly portal Sieci, declared that Poland will not make any concessions on the National Reconstruction Plan. To the best of my knowledge, we have fulfilled all the conditions to receive money from the National Reconstruction Plan. Our spending plan has been approved. I understand that we are waiting for the payment of what is due to us. The government recalls that the changes it has made to the judiciary were consulted in the past with representatives of the European Commission. First, the European Commission considered that it had been implemented. Mrs. von der Leyen said that the conditions had been met, that she accepted what had happened. Then, when it became clear that signatures were being collected in the European Parliament in favor of dismissal, she changed her mind after a few days and announced that she did not accept it. Civic platform politicians accuse the government that it is through their actions that Poland has not received National Reconstruction Plan money all this time. If we finally change these laws regarding the judiciary, then the National Reconstruction Fund will be immediately unblocked, because that's what it's all about all this time. The New Left is calling on the government to carry out a request to the European Commission, under which Brussels will be obliged to provide information on why National Reconstruction Plan funds are being blocked this whole time. According to publicists, EU interventions in Polish justice reform have halted the process of decommunization of the judiciary. An example is Judge Józef Iwulski, who sentenced oppositionists during martial law, and today, despite being suspended by the disciplinary chamber, continues to rule in the Supreme Court. Today, the European Union is the mainstay of lawlessness and lack of rule of law in Poland. If it wants to regain credibility, then first it should pay us the money, and then we can can continue the talks. The European Commission has declared that National Reconstruction Plan funds will be paid to Poland when it meets the so-called milestones. The primary issue is the Supreme Court's disciplinary chamber. After talks with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, the disciplinary chamber was replaced by the Chamber of Professional Responsibility on July 15th. Poland, however, has still not received the funds.
And finally, yesterday, minority Serbs in the north of Kosovo said they were quitting their posts in state institutions, including the government, police, and the courts, to protest Pristina's order for them to start using Kosovo license plates. Following a meeting of Serb political representatives in the north of Kosovo, Minister of Communities and Returns, Goran Rakic, said he was resigning from his post in the Pristina government.
Upravo zbog naše odlučnosti
Due to our determination to adhere to international public law and defend the Brussels Agreement and all the other agreements achieved in the dialogue, we decided to abandon all the political institutions, that is, the parliament, the government, and all 4 municipalities in the north of Kosovo, but also to abandon the participation and work of Serbs in the judicial organs, in the police, in the north of Kosovo, and all the administrative staffing in the 4 municipalities in the north of Kosovo.
U 4 opštine na severu Kosova.
The long-running license plate row has stoked tensions between Serbia and its former province of Kosovo, which gained independence in 2008 and is home to a small ethnic Serb minority in the north that is backed by Belgrade. The chief of staff to Kosovo, President Vjosa Osmani, accused Belgrade of seeking to destabilize Kosovo by backing Serbs in the north in a tweet. Kosovo's government has said it will start issuing fines this month to Serb drivers using old pre-independence plates and will confiscate vehicles that have not had their registration numbers changed by April 21st, 2023. Kosovo's main backers, the United States and the European Union, have urged Prime Minister Albin Kurti to postpone implementing the car plates ruling for another 10 months, but he has refused. Well, as usual, thanks very much for joining us this evening. Please stay with us for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and other programs. But from me, it's have a wonderful week ahead.